Hello audience and welcome to MedPod. This is the show where we go into healthcare issues and taking them beyond just hospitals, clinics and that kind of meaning into the environment around us and looking at the interactions between us and our environment in that way. So a couple of disclaimers first. Myself and my team are not medical professionals yet, so whatever we say on here is factual information, but we're not liable for any decisions made based on any of the content we've got. Again, it's just for entertainment purposes and general education. However, if you do have questions about the episode, please feel free to drop us comments once we get our social media up and running at UOW_medsoc. So today we're going to be diving into a bit of mental maths and how it's adding up, or is it, in the healthcare sector and beyond. Now, for those of you with a bit of a colourful relationship with maths, don't fret, we've already read up the numbers for you, so no number crunching today. We're talking about what's actually important here, not just today, but every day, and that is mental health and well-being. So this is really relevant because a lot of the time everyone struggles with things like juggling, work, school or university, life in general, all these kind of things that factor into our everyday lives. There's a lot. And our brains are amazing in the capacity that they play in terms of regulating the rest of the body and everything that happens and responding to everything that happens around us. So I just think that's a lot of processing work. But in the healthcare sector, medical professionals have to juggle even more. They have to consider their patients and all their responsibilities. It is difficult to be working in the medical sector, so the idea is here we're going to be looking at not only, our general what mental health is, but also looking at how it impacts people in the healthcare sector, as well as we're going to be touching on COVID-19 and where we can take how we perceive mental health into the future. One of the things that many of us will have experienced at some point or another is burnout. So burnout involves prolonged responses towards stresses in the working environment. These can be people that we work with, long hours generally, or perhaps all the to-do lists, which can get a bit hectic, right? We're going to carry this into the medical sector by taking a look at a survey that was carried out by the BMA. So that's the British Medical Association, and we have some of their results right here. They used what's called the Oldenburg Burnout Inventory in order to research how the different aspects of burnout manifest in healthcare workers' everyday responsibilities. And the OLB, that's the burnout inventory I just mentioned. The OLB has been around since the 90s, and essentially it's a series of statements which you've just seen. And in this case, the healthcare workers could agree or disagree to a certain extent, hence the different scores. We also have other inventories that are considered to be the standard of burnout research. So things like the Maslach Burnout Inventory, as well as a list of a few more that we've got right here for you. All of them have subtle differences, but one thing they do emphasize is ensuring that we understand the difference between the physiological and the psychological effects of burnout and, again, their manifestations. Now that we've gone through a little bit of what these inventories are about, now we'll be able to understand the results of the BMA study. So they concluded that 80% of healthcare workers were at high or very high risk of burnout. Now think about that, 80%, that is huge. Through the study, we also see that a majority, 58% rather, of healthcare workers perceive their environments to be contributing significantly towards their risk of burnout, which is undeniable considering the immense workload and the fact that they're having to prioritize patient needs above their own. So, leading on from that, have any of you ever heard of compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is quite a concern in the healthcare sector just because of how overwhelming it can become to address patients' physical and emotional well-being before their own, they being the medical professionals. And we see that at an organizational level, this can lead to disorganization, difficulties with running hospital operations because relationships between different staff members can become impacted by burnout and alongside compassion fatigue we see. On an individual level, medical professionals may suffer from depression, anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD. We've also noted it in several studies, one of which is right here. In addition, seeking out support for mental health issues is surrounded by stigma, which is set up by society, and therefore this means that as a society we can work to show a little bit more compassion towards those who prioritize others ahead of themselves. So it's not just healthcare workers who experience mental health changes, all of us do as well. And this is especially true of the COVID-19 years, which I'm fairly sure we all remember some part of. Now, it's been difficult because obviously the people have had to, for instance, move out of home for university or work or any life change. And this, in research, it's been highlighted that having a support system through that time was particularly beneficial. And those who lived at home with a support system at home could feel more of those benefits as opposed to people who are living away from home. Now, the research is a little bit mixed on this because while some studies, such as this one, have shown that the support system at home, having parents, for instance, at home, has had a positive benefit and has ensured that people can maintain positive mental well-being. Those who lived away from home were able to develop a sense of independence and freedom. So evidently we can see here there is a bit of a clash of opinions. What the literature does agree on is that the housing market has not been kind to people. So people like university students have found it difficult to face challenges involved with living away from home and having to account for the many expenses, which has played into mental distress that they're experiencing. So whether or not you live at home or away as a student listening in, it's important to have that support system around you. Find anyone you can trust, friends or family or pets, for whoever has them. The one thing I will add before we move on is that the research on this kind of stuff, so mental health and the home environment, which we spend a lot of our day in after the working environment, we need more research in that area in order to determine the impact that it can have and how people within those environments can impact mental health as well. So now to turn to continuing our conversation on mental health beyond the healthcare sector, we're going to be listening in as our special guest Kristy Robinson is going to provide us some insights, very valuable insights into things like misconceptions around mental health and how in this day and age we have stigma and social media impacting our mental well-being, and where we can take it into the future in terms of our perception. So let's listen in. So today we have Kristy Robinson on the show. Hi, say hi, Kristy.
Hi, happy to be here.
Lovely. We're happy to have you here. Um, so first of all, if you could just tell our audience a little bit about what you do and that kind of stuff.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristy Robinson, and I use she, her pronouns. And I am the Student Support Development Lead at the University of Westminster, which is a relatively new role. I joined the university in January as part of the Student Support and Residential Life area. And I'm here to ensure that the services are responsive to student needs and are inclusive for all students attending University of Westminster. So that means participating in conversations like this, hearing what students want from us, and making sure that the services reflect back what students want and what they need to better support them personally and academically.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristy. So, with in terms of supporting students' needs, sometimes when seeking out mental health support, for instance, um, sometimes there are a lot of misconceptions around things like mental health. So, like just to clarify for everyone, what kind of common misconceptions have you encountered, perhaps?
That's a great question because there are so many common misconceptions when it comes to mental health and what we think about when we think of mental health. The first one that usually comes to mind is that only some people have mental health, when really we all have mental health the same way we all have physical health, the same way we all have our physical bodies. And some days we might feel physically better than others. Some individuals might have physical ailments or medical conditions that they struggle with. It's the same thing for our mental health. We all have brains. And so sometimes we might feel better and sometimes we might feel worse in terms of our mental health. But I think the biggest misconception that I hear is that not everyone has mental health. Another one that I frequently come across is that mental health struggles are a sign of weakness or even failure. You certainly can see that with university students, and I'm usually the first person to kind of squash that. We all struggle. We're all human, and our mental health, can change day to day and over time. Certainly, when we're faced with stress and overwhelm. And so experiencing mental health struggles is not a sign of weakness or personal failure. It's a sign that you're human. And with that, reaching out for help is often something that one might struggle with. That can also be a misconception that reaching out for help is a sign of weakness, or that something is quote unquote wrong with you. But really reaching out for help is definitely a sign of strength, and it takes courage to reach out. So those are some of the different kind of misconceptions that I've certainly encountered in my years of doing this work.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really helpful to remind our audience today. Like everyone can come up against mental health struggles at some point or another, and we all need to be able to take care of ourselves, not just physically but mentally as well. So thank you.
Of course.
We Another question that I think kind of links quite nicely with that is stress can really take a toll on our mental health, right? So what are some effective ways that people can manage stress in their daily lives, do you think?
Sure. I think this question is so important, especially in the context of this conversation, speaking to university students, because university is inherently stressful. So the students and the colleagues that are going to be listening to this are going to be experiencing stress. It's a part of our lives. It's a part of academic life. And so how we manage that stress, I think, is unique to each individual. I don't have a list, in my notebook of the secret um, recipe for everyone to kind of
Yeah.
follow. But I think it depends on each individual and what works for you. There isn't kind of a one size fits all model for managing stress. It's about checking in with yourself and really getting to know what works for you. There's some obvious things that can help decrease stress and that are evidence to decrease stress. Things like getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, making sure that you're hydrated and well fueled with your balanced diet, moving your body, physical activity. That doesn't mean you have to be a marathon runner. Maybe that just means sometimes you're sitting on a Teams call and having a good stretch or something like that, or taking the stairs instead of the lifts. Little things like that are kind of ways that you can incorporate stress management into your day-to-day life. I also think a really big one is making sure that you stay connected to things that bring you joy, things that bring pleasure to your life, to your social supports. I know, especially for university students, you don't always have the time to do all the things that you might want to do, but just maintaining some balance in your life, having those little tea or coffee catch ups, connecting with others when you can, finding time to laugh and to play, those can be great strategies for managing or decreasing your stress.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. So, of course, like, thank you for suggesting some of those strategies. But you're absolutely right. We don't really have a one size fits all model, do we?
Mm. No, no, and I think that's what's challenging. I think sometimes we want that. We want the answers, right? We want someone to just tell us what to do to make the stress go away. And the truth is, this stress is a part of life, and stress can be incredibly motivating. It can be something that drives us. It's just how we manage it, how we respond to it effectively. And that requires getting to know yourself and taking care of yourself, taking those steps to take care of yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, could not have put that better myself. So now, of course, we've over time approaches to mental health have changed. Like now we have people like you and your team helping students in university, but like in wider society, obviously it can be a bit more difficult to seek out help. So, how do you think the approach to mental health support and treatment has evolved over time?
Sure. I think in general, in the past 10 to 20 years, we've seen significant improvement around the stigma that's attached to mental health, both for individuals who might be experiencing mental health struggles, but also for the wider population who now can understand and have compassion for those individuals who might be experiencing mental health struggles. So that decrease in stigma is amazing because what that means is individuals don't have to hide in the shadows anymore when it comes to getting the help or reaching out for the support that they might need. And I think this conversation that we're having right now is evidence of that. Like you said, like we can sit here on this call and talk about mental health in a way that feels approachable and human, and it doesn't need to be this dark scary thing that only impacts again, air quotes, certain people. It impacts all of us. And the more we talk about it and bring it into the forefront of the conversation, the more likely people who are struggling or who notice others in their lives struggling, the more likely they are to reach out for the resources and the support that they might need. So that decrease in stigma has had a huge impact on our society, but also has led to more support and resources becoming available. And we see that even at the university with increased resources in the area of student support and residential life. We have counseling support, we have online support, we have our well-being advisors and our mental health practitioners, our disability team. We have all these amazing support services that if the stigma was as high as it once was, those resources might not be as accessible to our student population. So that's been wonderful to witness and to be a part of.
Yeah, thank you. So, of course, having more resources now and, like you said, bringing mental health to the forefront just helps us to do things like what we're doing today, raising awareness and making people feel more comfortable. So absolutely appreciate that. And obviously, so of course, in this age, now that we're bringing it from 10 to 20 years ago to now, but
Mhm.
now obviously we're experiencing things like, uh, companies are pushing out phones all the time. Social
Mm.
media has been developing, in the last like 5 to 10 years alone.
Yeah.
So, of course, a really important question that I think needs to be asked is what role does social media play in mental health, whether it's positive or negative?
Again, another really important question. And I'm sure we could probably spend all afternoon talking about it and weighing the pros and cons, right? And I think the answer to your question is that social media has both positive and negative effects on an individual's mental health or their overall well-being. On the one hand, social media provides access to information and to people and connection that previously we did not have. And so the sense of connectedness that we can now feel because of social media with groups or individuals who aren't maybe immediately in our social circle or in our network is really powerful. And I think especially if you are identify within a marginalized, population or are unsure how to connect with others in a more traditional sense, social media gives you that opportunity to connect and find like-minded people when previously you might have not been able to. But then, of course, there's that flip side too, right? And social media can sometimes give a false sense of knowing or connection. Um, and it can also breed comparison. I think that's something that we see a lot, certainly with younger folks and generations who are growing up on social media, where they're being exposed to the lives of others that might look a certain way, the filters, the glossiness of it all. And then there's this feeling of, kind of inadequacy, or am I not living my life the correct way? Am I not enough? And I think that can be kind of a slippery slope and pretty dangerous for one's mental health or well-being, where they're kind of thinking about how others look or how their lives appear in comparison to their own.
Mm.
I also think social media can give this sense of false protection, which can lead to cyberbullying too. We've seen a lot of that, where it's hard to set boundaries or kind of protect yourself from, what do we want to call them, the trolls, or negative comments that people might more likely participate in than they would if they were having an in-person kind of face-to-face interaction. And that can have a serious impact on someone's mental health. It certainly, when I was practicing as a psychotherapist, I saw the real impact of cyberbullying on self-esteem, and it can increase, anxiety and depression for individuals. So I think social media can be a powerful tool and a wonderful tool, but can also have some serious negative side effects as well that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's also in like comparing people's highlight reel to your everyday, it's pretty unrealistic, isn't it?
Yes, so well put, Sarah. I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
And then also things like body image as well, because social media, that's another kind of comparison that people very often make between themselves and others.
Absolutely. You see these what I eat in a day videos, and you see these images of individuals, and you don't know their life, you don't know their medical history, but you're left with this kind of image of what maybe an ideal body is. And that can set this unrealistic expectation or standard, for the general population to kind of be emulating, which again is really, really dangerous. So you're absolutely right. I think the body image concerns and just that overall uh,
Hmm.
comparison aspect of social media is really harmful.
Yeah. So of course we we have all these kind of things coming at us through our phones every single day. So, of course, it's quite challenging to keep strong against all of it. But is there any way, or like, are there any ways that we can think about perhaps building a bit more resilience towards that kind of thing?
Mm,
Do you think?
yeah, I mean, in response, if we're thinking about social media in particular, I think it can be helpful to remind yourself that it's only one aspect of your life. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not real. I don't think that's accurate anymore. I think social media and our online connections feel very real for individuals. So it's not that it's not real. I think that it's just one aspect of your life. And when I think about resilience, I think about our holistic approach to well-being. So making sure that we are able to take care of ourselves holistically and think about all the aspects of our lives that we need in order to maintain um, a healthy sense of self. And so social media is just one aspect, but what are our relationships like in our day-to-day life? What are our hobbies? What gives us a sense of purpose? What's our motivations? I think asking ourselves those questions can be a way to get to know ourselves and really stay grounded in our sense of self, which can increase our resilience when we're faced with challenges and adversity. Um, I can't, undersell the importance of a support network too, and reaching out to folks that you trust, and that again looks different for everyone. But I think having people in your life who you can trust and open up to is really key to resilience. I don't operate from the mindset that we need to do it alone or that we need to be these, powerful independent people. I think independence is great and being able to take care of yourself is great, but we also, we long for connection and to be able to rely on other people and also to be someone to be relied on by the people in our lives too. So I think, getting to know yourself and staying grounded, but also relying on others is a really important way to stay resilient when you're faced with challenges that might come from social media or come from
Yeah.
university life or whatever is kind of being thrown your way.
Definitely. And I think you've really helped us today to, sorry, I think you've really helped us today to kind of start to look with hope, look forward with hope,
Mm.
and the kind of a positive attitude towards our own mental health and how we can support ourselves and others. Um, so absolutely wonderful to have had you here today, to kind of give us that. We're very grateful.
So I mean, having this conversation gives me hope because, it's leaders and students like you who are going to be paving the way and modeling this for future generations. And so that's just incredible to witness. So I feel very honored to have been included in this conversation today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And if our audience, our student audience has any questions about this kind of stuff, who can they contact? Who can they reach out to?
Sure. So there's a number of resources that they can access just by going on the Student Hub on the University of Westminster website. But they can always email my team if they have any questions or want to know more about the work that we're doing, certainly around the University Mental Health Charter. We love when students want to be involved and have their voice represented. So they can email Student Support Development Team at westminster.ac.uk.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.
You too, Sarah. Thank you.
So, Zara, you have Simon, who's the CEO of Calm. You've got Rosie, who's the CEO of Student Minds. You've got Dr. Dom, and you've got Jack. So they're your panel. So we'll hand over to you for the first question.
Okay, so perfect. Thank you. Just to introduce this section of our Q&As for the mental health podcast episode for MedPod. Just a little trigger warning, there may be some sensitive topics involved, and discussion points may get a little bit heavy, so just so you're aware, audience. So thank you very much to our lovely panel who have kindly agreed to be here today. Hi everyone.
Hello.
So hi.
Hello.
Thank you everyone again for being here. Now, hi Simon. So in terms of, could you just go into a little bit about what your charity does, just to start us off?
Yeah, we're a suicide prevention organisation, and we work deeply in culture, in sport and music and art and things like that, but also very, very much with wonderful people like Jack in the worlds of comedy. We run a helpline 7 days a week, which is free to call and staffed by paid and trained professional people. So we can intervene at points of crisis, but we're there being daft and silly or heavy hitting all the way through people's lives.
Wow, thank you. So, of course, with suicide, it can be quite, as you've said, it can be heavy at times, but working out that balance, it seems you guys have that down. So, like developing awareness of suicide and initiatives that people can, initiatives available to people to help them through the, I guess, the sort of, not for want of a better word, I suppose, being able to come away from that kind of mentality. So, how have those initiatives developed over time, do you think?
Is that for everybody else or for me?
For you for now, yes.
Um, Okay, there are kind of key principles that we work to, and a large part of it is de-escalation if somebody's at a point of crisis and providing an alternative perspective of the future. Which, when somebody's at a point of real crisis, you can't really see around the corner, can you? So, just giving opportunities for people to understand that the future can be better, and that's via kind of big campaigns that we do with brilliant media partners like Channel 4 and ITV and Spotify and Netflix and all those kind of people. It's by a huge amount of digital content that we make that sits on our website, and we'd encourage every one of your listeners to come and have a look, either for yourself or for people that you care about, and have it in your pocket for the future, and through our helpline. But really, when we can make the most difference, it's when we can partner with Channel 4 and we can partner with Jack. Not that we partnered on Big Boys, not taking any credit for that. That was all Jack. For us to be able to kind of piggyback on with that, a brilliant awareness driver and such a wonderful message of positivity and such great insight into relationships and the struggles that people can encounter. People can see themselves in those kinds of portrayals. And when they need someone to turn to, perhaps, then hopefully Student Minds and Calm are kind of front of mind for them.
Absolutely, thank you. So, of course, there's this drive to raise awareness, as all of you are doing, for example, today. And another aspect, more specifically, to go into, so student mental health, as you've mentioned, obviously, Jack has written and created the Big Boys show. And that kind of brings into focus aspects of student mental health, right? So now to ask Rosie, if you don't mind. So in terms of the sort of the vision behind Student Mind, would you mind just elaborating a little bit more behind what you guys are doing and what that means?
Yeah, of course. So Student Minds is the UK student mental health charity, and we're working to ensure that no student is held back by their mental health. So we do that in a few ways. We empower students themselves to build their own mental health toolkit to deal with the ups and downs of university life. We also challenge and support the higher education sector, the health sector, and the government to make student mental health a priority. And yeah, really want to make sure that everyone in that community can reach their own goals.
Yeah, perfect. So, um, how have you personally perceived like the importance of bringing student mental health to the forefront of conversations and just getting people to, be comfortable with those kind of discussions?
Yeah, so timely question. It's University Mental Health Day today, and so we've got hundreds of universities taking part and other student organizations starting those conversations right now. But I think the reason why we were really excited to be involved in this work promoting big boys across the UK as well is because it really, I think it's one of the first, I think maybe even the first drama I've seen that so eloquently captures what it's like to be a student for the first time. But also, it's a show that I think should appeal to every generation. I think everyone can see themselves in some of the characters. And the reality is that everyone will at some point in their life be impacted by the themes that are discussed in it. So I think really I would encourage everyone to look at the show and to get to know the characters. And I think there's a real opportunity that some students who may not engage with some of the work that is going on in the sector will connect with the comedy and the art and really feel like they see themselves in some of the characters in the piece as well.
Fantastic. So, really looking forward to getting Jack's perspectives on his show in a moment. But just before we head into sort of the more creative side of exploring mental health, Dr. Dominique, hi, lovely to meet you.
Hello.
So, I believe I I watched one of the TED Talks that you've done before, and you mentioned something that really caught my eye. So, in terms of what students face in university life, and how standards keep inflating all the time. So, it'd be nice to get to pick your brains a little bit more about how perhaps students can be helped in terms of facing those kind of challenges and the increasing standards placed upon them.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's the TEDx that's called What I Learned from 78,000 Consultations with University Students. Yeah. So my themes that I share in that talk are around the pressure to be perfect, perfectionism, and the competitiveness of life now that young people in particular are under pressure to be the best all the time and to be perfect, and they compare themselves with other people all the time, and there is this sort of relentless pressure, and that is particularly true, I think, at university, because of course academic pressure is one of the big themes alongside, financial worries and worrying about making friends in isolation that students struggle with in some cases. So I guess the sorts of messages I've tried to share back are when I was seeing students, when I was their GP, feeling this huge pressure to be perfect, would be to talk about just trying to do their best rather than be the best. And to think about when sometimes actually didn't even need to always do your best, just to what was good enough. When were there times when actually this is good enough for this particular thing? And just, holding that mirror up to how much pressure they might be feeling and saying, you can talk to us about this, you can share this with us and look for ways to recognize that when things don't go well, you can also learn from that. And I would share examples like at the moment, one of my favorites is the CV of failures. If students haven't looked at it, and you Google CV of failures, it's just fascinating how really successful people have shared their CV, but all the things that didn't work. So the job they didn't get, the interview they didn't get, and so on. So it's just about trying to reassure people in these difficult situations that they're not alone and that we are there to support them around that sort of pressure.
Yes, that is absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is so essential to have that kind of support system around you, isn't it, in difficult times. So in terms of that as well, and being able to provide other support services within universities, we have Christos as well. Hi, you're
Hello,
still here, right?
everybody.
Awesome. So,
Yes.
um, now if you, so it'd be lovely to hear some of your thoughts on because you are a psychology graduate, so getting to understand the ways you've applied your knowledge throughout university and other things that you're going to be going on to do.
Yes. So obviously, I learned a lot of the theories about in the psychology course, but then of course I obviously wanted to apply it in the university. So there was an opportunity for me to become a well-being ambassador, and in that role, I would set up like different well-being stores in every campus, and I actually went to every campus to see like what kind of support services the University of Westminster provided. So like for example, like gym services, because you know if you uh like work out, studies show that um you know you can like improve your mental health in that regard. But yeah, I think the main point of the wellbeing ambassador role was bringing awareness to all the students. So like we would set up stalls and they would come up to us, and I would also like signpost them. So like I would make them aware of like the Mind charity, and other like support services that they could reach out to. Because at the end of the day, I think bringing awareness is the most important thing. Because a lot of students like might not know where to go. And also another example, the University of Westminster actually provides 6 free counselling services as well for everybody that doesn't know. Like in case anybody is worried about their financial position, of course. And what I'm currently doing is I actually secured a role as a support and progression officer for one of the biggest charities in the UK. So that's where I'm currently at. And yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of tips and advice now that students are going through exam seasons too. I think you should take like regular breaks, you know, take a breather, you know, walk in the park or, you know, hang out with friends. Like you don't have to constantly focus on, you know, doing your assignments all the time, even though, you know, that might be like your priority. But like, you know, taking a break is very important, like for your mental health as well. That's what I've noticed within myself too. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sorry, getting into the things that you've seen as a wellbeing ambassador, as well as just being able to share some tips with some of our student audience who will, I think, hugely benefit and be grateful for some of these tips. Now, in order to perhaps um, perfect. Okay. So, in order to bring this topic now into the more creative aspect of mental health, hi, Jack. Lovely to meet you as well.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
So, of course, very exciting to have seen, because so far I've seen some ads for the show and gotten to read some stuff about it. But if you'd like to talk us through a little bit more for anyone who maybe hasn't gotten to see it yet.
Yeah, Big Boys is a university set Channel 4 comedy drama about a kind of group of friends, namely two characters called Jack and Danny, who meet at a fictional uni called Brent Uni, which is heavily inspired by my years at the University of Westminster. Um, and yeah, it's about the two of them being kind of very different kind of types of guy, or man, young man, and kind of choosing each other and supporting each other through the kind of trials and tribulations of university. And that's sort of why we kind of just put out the final series this month, and wanted to attach it to University Mental Health Day, which, you know, has been pioneered by student minds. But since I've been at uni, I've been an ambassador and done various bits and bobs with Calm. So it's really nice to sort of bring both organisations together, and sort of hope that Big Boys has sort of legacy of trying to help students at university who are going through mental health difficulties to sort of know that there is both support and hope available, let's say.
Yes, that's perfect, especially with such a large number of students attending universities all across the UK. I think they'd love to get to see something like that to relate to, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Um,
And it's sort of a show that I kind of think comedy is often a really good way of knocking down some awkward barriers and talking about trickier topics. So that's sort of what I hope it does, definitely.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously, a lot of thought must have gone into finding the right balance while writing the show, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important for there to be moments that feel authentic to what young people's experiences are. You know, I love a kind of funny, silly comedy about, you know, people getting into japes and scrapes as much as the next person. But I felt like with Big Boys, there was an opportunity to show some more dramatic elements and some more maybe authentic experiences that I think actually are affecting students in the UK now and have been since when I went to university, which was about 10 years ago. So yeah, I think it's important to kind of use comedy to get people into a space where they can have slightly heavier conversations about mental health and suicide and the topics that I think are really prevalent to discuss and prevalent to signpost where support is available.
Absolutely right. Now, what I believe, oh, my bad. That was screen. Oh, uh,
I also am so sorry, but I have to go sort of imminently because I've got to be somewhere at 1 o'clock.
yes,
But
absolutely.
if you did have any more questions, then I could voice note them to you, if that's useful. So you had them in an audio format.
All right.
Thank you,
Yeah, that
Sarah.
would be awesome. But I think so today we've gotten into a lot of we've had a lot of different explorations of different perspectives from everyone here today. So really appreciate that. And I bet our audience is gonna love that as well, something that they can relate to and apply and perhaps go check out the show as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much, guys. And it's really nice to talk to students from my actual university. And I'm really like proud and touched that you guys are doing a podcast and, you know, the medical society is taking mental health really seriously. I think that's really, really brilliant, positive stuff. So congrats to you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Christos.
You.
Well done. Cheers.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And now, just to wrap up what we've been talking about today, we've gone into what it's like to experience burnout and compassion fatigue in the healthcare sector, as well as exploring beyond that, what it means for us to be experiencing mental distress in a time when things are really challenging across the whole world, and making sure that we have the right support system around us during hard times. And of course, we've been looking at misconceptions as well as the future of our perception on mental health support. So I'd like to thank now the Smoke Radio for bringing our ideas to life, as well as the MedPod teams. So in particular, shout out to the social media team, podcast engagement analysis team, and all the research effort that has gone behind our episode to curate all the sources that we've brought in for you. So, and above all, thank you again to all of you listeners for tuning in and getting to learn a little bit more about healthcare and how it interacts with our environment. Now, speaking of which, environment-wise, our next episode is going to be about sustainability. So exploring how the medical sector has impacted the environment, but how we can change that and how we can improve the planet's health for all of us. So thank you again, everyone, and see you next time on MedPod. our special guest, Chris. I had this so mixed up at first. I was calling her Kirsty in my head. Okay, so. Okay. Honestly, I need a blooper reel. We should film a blooper reel at some point.